Today we'll be covering the IE wizard in M.O.M. To get to IE wizard, you need to go to Options, Import Export Module, and towards the bottom you'll see the Import Export Wizard. This will launch the wizard, and you'll see a screen similar to this. This screen is up. You'll see there's a couple steps here to ensure that you are able to import the data set that you want. First step is to identify which data you want to import. With this wizard, you're able to import stock, customer, orders, and if you have user-defined rates and zones. So you can see here, you are able to use stock import, order import, and customer import, shipping rates, and zones if you'd like. So once you choose the data import that you'd like to do in the system, we're going to start choosing the options that you can do. First off, if you have an existing job for the stock import, you can do that. Next, if you don't have an existing job, you can create a brand new one. At this point, you would be able to type in the job name that you'd like. Once you have the name created, the next step is to select the data source. So at this point, you would be choosing where your stock data is. So once the data is selected, you'd be able to choose a couple options here. So if you do have headers on the first row, there is a checkbox there to allow you to check for headers, and you can tell the system where the header is in row 1. So by default, it's typically in row 1, so we leave it there, and then the data starts at row 2. Next here is you need to identify the text delimiter for your data. So if it's tab delimited, semicolon, or comma, you make sure you choose that. And then if there's a text delimiter, you could choose single quote or double quote. You can also choose none if that's the case. Once you've done that, you're going to hit next here. And what this does is gives you a preview of your data set. So once you see that everything's aligned to your liking, you can go ahead and hit next. So at this point, you can see that on the left side, you have the data from your import file, and the right side is available fields that you can map it to on the M.O.M database, right? So in this case, since we named our fields fairly the same, so it's easier to map. So you can see we can highlight number on the left side, and then highlight number on the right side and hit map fields. Same thing for the next field, description, right? So now you can see description and description 1, description 2, and description 2, units, and so on. So very straightforward when doing the mapping. So once the mapping is complete, you can review it on the bottom to make sure that it's mapped accordingly. Once you're satisfied with the mapping, you can hit next here. So now you could see your data set on top, the field mapping that you did on the rule column maps in the previous step, and then you can see how it's going to import into M.O.M's field. So once that's completed and you're satisfied with that, you can hit finish, and you're done. So now you can exit the wizard. Now, what we just went through is identifying our data source, mapping the data source to the different fields that we want to import to M.O.M. And now, since we saved that job will now be available for you to use in the M.O.M system. So if you go to under options here again, import export module, you'll be able to see the different wizard jobs that you can do. So if you do stock import is the one that we did. So you can see do stock import, and you can select the job. We called it new stock imp, and it automatically points to your data source. And for stock import in particular, we do automatically dedupe based on the number field. So if the number does exist in your system, we won't import it to our system into M.O.M. So again, once this is done, you simply hit import, and that will process your stock. Now, if you were looking to import other data sets like customers, you do the same thing. We'll go back to the wizard. We will create a job for a customer import. So similar to what we did with stock, you could see for customer import, you would choose the data import for customer import. If depending on what you're doing here, you can create a job or edit an existing job. Once you have a new name for it, you then select the data source. You would navigate to where your customer export is or data. And then again, you have options here for if your data set has headers. And if they do, you can check the first checkbox right there and then define where the header starts and where the data starts. And in the bottom, you have the delimiter, depending on what the data type that you're bringing in. So if you're bringing in a comma delimited file, which is in our example, it is. So we're going to choose comma here. And we're going to choose text delimiter as none. I'm going to hit next. And this gives you a preview of the data set that you're bringing in. Just make sure everything's aligned. Nothing's abbreviated or cut off. And once you're satisfied with this, you can hit next. And at this point, you are going to be able to see our mapping step. So in step 3, you can see here on the left side, you have your field names that you from your import file. And then on the right side here, you have the M.O.M field that you can map to. So you can see for this example, we do have what we call configure conversion rule. So this is optional. In our case right now on our data set, we do have a individual first name field, so we don't have to do any special rules. So you can see here, we're going to highlight first name on number 1, first name on number 2, and then on number 3, we're just going to leave it alone because it's a straight one-to-one match. But we do have files where first name and last name are not separated, so you could split it here by rules. So you can see the same thing for last name. Since it's a single field, we can go ahead and straight map that. Same thing for company here. And address. So you just find the fields that you're looking for, map those. Very straightforward. City to city, state to state. And again, here, there's a sample there where you can see the state. You could set rules depending on how if it was 2-digit or not. And we're going to go look for zip code here. So zip to zip code. And then country. So country will also have a conversion rule. So depending on how you did it, so you could see if it was a 3-digit letter or 2-letter or ISO numbers, or you can have a text match. Depending on how your data set comes, you have a conversion rule that you can use so that way country is converted accurately. So once you're satisfied with your choice, you can hit map fields here, and then go to the next one. So phone, once you map the phone, you're ready to go to the next step and hit next. And again, here you get to review your data mapping. So you can see your data, your mapping, and then how it's going to come into the M.O.M system. Once you're satisfied with this, you can hit finish. Once it's finished the wizard setup and configuration here, we're going to hit exit. And then go back into M.O.M. Within M.O.M, under the import-export module, there's a import customer. And at that point, you'll be able to see that you can choose the new customer import that you've done. And we do have an option here to see if the customer exists first, so we can dedupe, so we can remove the duplicates before it comes in. Or if you don't want to do that, you do have options to just bring in the customers directly. So pretty sure you would run the import here, and they'll bring in all the customer information into our system. Cool. So next one we'll show you guys is the order import. Again, we're going to go the same place. We're going to go to Export Wizard here. So we're going to select our order import. We're going to go create a new job. We're going to give it a job name. And then we're going to select our data source for our import. So once we selected our order import, you can see it gives us an option to see if we have a header on it as well. If we do have a header, please check that box and make sure you define where the header starts and also define where the first data row starts, right? And then depending on the type of file that you're bringing in our example, we're using a CSV file, so we're going to go with comma and with the text delimiter as none. Once you're satisfied here, we can go hit next. You get to view the data set and how it's going to come in. So you get a preview of your data set. There is an option here if you want to right-click on the headers if you'd like to rename them, but in this case, you should have their names already the way you want it, so it make this step much faster. So we do recommend that you have your column headers properly named already. It's important for the next step when we start mapping the columns. So we go hit next here. You will see that on the left side, we have all the field names that we have from our import file, and we have the field names available for you to choose from within M.O.M. So if there are similar names or something that's easily identifiable, then it's very easy to map, right? So if it's alt-num to alt-num, that's pretty straightforward. Last name to last name, first name to first name. Again, very straightforward. Address to address. You could see here, very easy as long as you have the naming conventions aligned. So you're going to do phone, and you're going to go look for card type, num. So again, very important that you have names similar to what we have or what we expect on the M.O.M side. We do have a data dictionary that you can use as reference, so that way you can name it as close as possible before you do this. Because if you take this extra step, it makes, as you can see here, you can makes the step much easier when you do the mapping. And if you're seeing this, you can see that you can start typing these particular field names in here, and then automatically jumps to it if you'd like to do some shortcuts there. So once your mapping is complete, you're going to hit next here. It will give you a data review. So it shows your data set, your mapping, and then what it's going to look like into our system. So once you're satisfied with this, you can hit finish. Once the order mapping is complete, you're going to go back into the M.O.M system. And now you can use that template over and over again, the order import. So as long as the layout doesn't change, you don't have to make any edits to the order import. And you can see on here, should show up as a new order import with job wizard that you just created. So again, this is typically used when you're importing flat files that has a layout that doesn't necessarily change, is static. So once that static layout is locked in, you can use our import wizard to map it out like we did earlier. And then again, you can reuse this over and over again to import orders into our system. And that's it. That's a walkthrough to our import export M.O.M wizard.